Hi, good morning. How are you, Tracy? Okay, I'm trying to get a little fancy here. How are you? It is an early one. Thank you for being here. It may just be us, but yeah. I've just been rolling these out pretty quick because some of the information overlaps. If you are watching this on the replay, you can skip ahead a little bit while we settle in here. But yeah, how are you, Tracy? Let me grab my coffee too. And we're going to let just a couple people jump in here. Yeah. Tracy, where are you from again? I'm telling you, this weekend, I'm going to make all my tech work. Not just properly, but I mean, I hate the shadow thing. I got to get it. Oh, awesome. Oh, good morning, Rise. Rise with purpose. Welcome in. It's party of 3 right now. We're kind of just hanging out for a minute. I'm sure I'll be yelled at by the people who are watching this on the replay who say, just get to the point. But North Carolina, come on and raise up. Rise with Purpose, are you one of my followers? Have you subscribed yet? If not, definitely subscribe. Y'all, we made it to Friday. Praise Jesus. I am glad y'all could be in here. Oh, Tracy, you're so sweet. Yeah, I'm not a morning person, but sometimes it works out if I'm up late or early. Oh, good. I'm so glad it popped up because somebody else was saying that they weren't popping up, but you never know. It's a hit and miss. Um, so let me take a sip of coffee. Oh my gosh. Have y'all been following along what's been going on X? It's so interesting. I think this week has been a very dramatic week amongst all the major accounts over there, but not so much as it has been like away from Candace. Like Candace has definitely had her own stuff this week. You're not on X. I know. I keep on calling it Twitter. I honestly never thought whenever it was Twitter, I thought it was so dumb. And now it's really more like, I'm sure it's like the same format and stuff. But now, obviously, that's where I'm at. I don't even do other social media because I really honestly don't like social media. Yeah, me neither, actually. Rise with Purpose, I'm not either. Might be a shock, but I really value privacy. Oh my gosh, the drama has been so wild. Did you guys see that Iran made a Lego of Anna? I was on the phone with her yesterday whenever she saw it. I was like, you have made it. You have made it. She's only been at this for like 2 months. But every single time I choose to put my phone away for the day because I work full time as an attorney, right? And I can't be in my phone. I can't, I have bad ADHD. So it'll be either like all X and all this, or I don't get any work done. So never fails. Every single time I put my phone down, I pick it back up hours later and something has just hit the fan. Yeah, it's the new Lego video. So, all right. We have a couple people in here, so maybe we'll get started. They'll stop yelling at me. Okay, so welcome everybody. I have been doing a 3-part series, and in the middle of all of that, I keep on coming up with these ideas to do more videos or smaller collections so they're more digestible. So yeah, I did part 1, and it was supposed to be an evidence review, right? So part 1 was an evidence review of the physical property that they seized, so not the DNA. We went through all that, and then the second part was the testimony from David Hull, the British guy. I call him MI6. Anyways, I won't be mean. So he was actually, his testimony was very confusing for me. So I had to chart it all out. And if y'all missed it, go and look at part 2 of this series and grab those slides. If you want a copy, I'm happy to send them to you. I had to chart it out myself because the way his testimony went, it was very confusing trying to track Tyler all over campus. And the part 3 is going to be a review of the DNA and the forensics analysis. And I really saved that one until the end because I know a lot of people don't understand the biology behind it. And my undergrad is in bio, and I love genetics. So I thought I would kind of do something to teach people how they were testing and what it really means. And through all of that, I just started, pardon, okay. Those are my alarms. Okay. Through all that, I just was really floored because I've gone back and forth through this testimony. I mean, oh my gosh, so many times. I'm on like 2 times speed at this point. And I tried to speed it up to 3, but YouTube makes you pay for more. If you want to speed it up 3 times, you have to pay for more, so whatever. Anyhow, I am just really shocked by the questions that were not asked. And with some of the witnesses, they did really well. Like the complex ones, I pretty much liked the foundation. But on the other ones that were more simple, I just thought, man, we are missing so much stuff. It really kind of called the integrity of the defense into question for me, at least. And I wouldn't say it wasn't Kathy Nestor. I liked Kathy and her line of questioning the first day and a half. But then it's like they pulled her for some reason. I don't know. And I do know when you've got a panel of attorneys, you break it up so that everybody focuses on one or another. But I would have liked to see her. I like how she's a soft bulldog. Like she's really kind about it, but she was doing pretty good. It's just, there were just so many questions that were missed. So that's what we're going to go through today. And I know that when you're replaying the video, you really just want the information. So I'm going to go through like 1 to 2 witnesses at a time. And then I'm going to go back to the chat and talk about it. Because if I were to sit here and give the whole presentation at one time, it would just be so much that we would be jumping around talking about it. Because I do really want to get your feedback. So my dog is down here. I'm not doing weird things. My dog is down here. So, all right. Let's break into it. Maybe. Okay, there we go. So let's do this. All right. So Tyler's defense team, these are the questions left unasked that bothered me quite a bit. So let's start with Officer Bagley. Okay. Recall, he's a UVU police officer who was on like the Hall of Flags before and heard the shot came down into the courtyard, and then allegedly was the first one back up onto the Losi Center roof. Okay. So these are the questions that throughout his testimony, sorry, y'all, my dog is pushing me in my chair, that I just took note of. All right. So we know his body cam footage his body cam battery died right before he found the screwdriver. So some of these questions beforehand like are really like soft, and it doesn't matter so much if they were asked, but it kind of like lays the foundation of where we're going. So I was like, why didn't we ask who was responsible for not charging the body cam? Certainly there was a check-in, check-out log to see who had used it last, or, you could review footage to see who would have been responsible for that. Because I guess the point of that is, keeping track of, internal repercussions, because this is exactly why you're supposed to charge things for something like this. Like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal now. If it had been no harm, no foul, it is what it is, right? But anyways, that's a them thing. I really thought, though, why didn't they ask him why, or what was it that made him decide that the shot must have come from the Losi Center versus anywhere else? Because if you recall, he says he's down in the courtyard and he had found the empty holster. And he said, at that moment, I realized it was a shotgun, a rifle that I heard because of the crack. And I do believe him on that. And he said, the adrenaline stopped pumping so much and I could kind of get it together. And then he says he looks up to the Losi Center and is like, that's where we go. And I'm just thinking, it could have come from many other places. What made you decide that it was from the Losi Center versus anywhere else? I think we know why it did, but that would have been a really good question to ask, because, go figure, he goes up onto the roof and there's the sniper perch, right? How convenient. So also, I believe we reviewed some of his body cam footage, and it captured the suspect on the Losi Center roof prior to the shooting. And I would have asked about that, because I've seen it. I've seen the body cam footage, and I will say 95% certainty that it was his that I thought I saw. But regardless, if he was where he said he was, how did he not see this guy on the roof? Like, it was directly across. I think that's pretty important. And then he testified about an empty holster. I would have asked, are you aware a holster with a gun was found in the courtyard? Because we do find out later that they had found a gun in a holster in the courtyard. So I'm a little confused myself. Like, how many empty holsters were there and guns? And yeah, the number of firearms that got left behind was insane. I would have asked who confiscated the gun in the holster, because nobody ever asked that. Did you see a footprint on the roof like Agent Falmina did? So Agent Falmina testifies that she saw a footprint on the roof. He just says that he sees one on the grass where the suspect must have jumped off. And then, more importantly, why didn't you have a picture taken of the footprint on the grass? This really, really bothers me, because they even seized some shoes from Tyler's bedroom. Like, why wouldn't you, if you marked off that area with tape, and he did, why wouldn't you have the footprint photographed? Okay. And then I would have said, so he testified in court that he heard the shot come from the east or to the right of him, but he didn't include it in his report. And she brings that up. She says, don't you know, like, the importance of an accurate report because of situations like this where you could be called to testify to it years later. And he says, yes. And, she says, now you're saying that it came from the east or the right, but you didn't say that in the report. And that's all good and fine, because sometimes your memory will kind of catch up with you if it's an honest memory. But you also have to be aware of time that passes and people that add to the story. That could also happen too. And it is very interesting that I got very specific, like came from the East. I'm thinking if I'm this officer and I'm writing the report the next day, I would have been as specific as I could have been. And then I would have said, were you interviewed by anybody, or were you just simply asked for your report? I mean, that's pretty relevant, right? Did they just ask you to just write your report the next day? Did anybody talk to you? And he says that he left the roof at 1 p.m. Now, I know that his shift had started at 11, so I really doubt that his shift was over by 1 p.m., including, well, considering everything that was going on, I'm sure there was overtime that day. So why didn't they ask him what time he got off shift and what he was doing with the rest of that time? And it looks like these have been kind of cut off. So let me see if there are any more that I didn't get here. Let me pull up on my other screen. Give me just a second. Because I don't know that. Well, I do know now that let me do this over here. When I put it in PowerPoint and I upload it to StreamYard, it cuts off the very bottom of it. So we're going to have a couple in here. Yeah. So just like, what did you do with the remainder of your shift, and when did that shift end? So let's see. What do you guys think about that? Y'all have any thoughts on some of these questions or what we missed? Let's see what y'all said. I'm going back through here just a little bit. Okay, so he never said why he was rummaging around. Is my sound better now? Let me know. All right, testing. It looks like it's okay to me. Okay, just let me know. Okay, he never said why he was rummaging around in the Chica film boxes if he was expecting to find something. Tracy, can you elaborate on that? I don't know what you're talking about. It's major rummaging. Being released now on his movement along with his spouse that he didn't get his ID from. Okay. That must be, Tracy, that must be extra footage that I have not seen yet, because I can tell you that it was not brought up during the preliminary hearing. In fact, Kathy Nestor was the one who was examining him, and she talks about the body cam footage that she saw, but I don't see where they entered the body cam footage as an exhibit. Now they could have, and they might just not have shown it. So that's interesting. Let me, you know what? I will review these notes at the very end. Hey, Keith, welcome on. Jean Elite, thank you. Yeah, we definitely need to figure out what that extra footage is. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to bring this back up. Well, it looks like it's already up for you guys. Okay, so we're going to move on. So this is SBI agent Brian Davis, okay? If you recall, he is the one who I believe was in Salt Lake City. I could be wrong. And they call him, yeah, all right. Now I'm remembering correctly. They call him right at about 8:30 or 9 on the 11th. Sorry. Is it the 11th or the 12th? It's the date that Tyler turns himself in. So I think it's the 11th. I don't know why. I think everybody gets these things, like even the witnesses get this stuff confused. So Charlie's incident happened on the 10th, and then the 11th, that evening is whenever Tyler turns himself in. So Brian Davis takes like a helicopter or private plane down with a couple of their agents down to the Washington County Sheriff's Department to be there to question Tyler, his parents. And he ends up being the one who books him in the next morning. Okay. So when he gets there, Tyler's there. He understands that Tyler voluntarily brought himself in with his parents, along with the help of like Mike Mitchell, who I guess was former law enforcement. There are questions surrounding him, and apparently he is Tyler's former Boy Scout troop leader. Okay, so at some point, Lance comes down to the sheriff's department. So I would have asked, who asked Lance to come down to the sheriff's department? Surely there was a phone call made, something. But we don't know. Like, why didn't we ask that? Did anyone ask Lance's parents to come in for an interview, considering they owned that apartment? Why wouldn't they? I was thinking this morning too, why did you guys not consider him also a suspect? Like, this is the first time I think I've seen, like, okay, let's say Tyler did it and he did it for his lover. Wouldn't you wonder if maybe the lover put him up to it? It's just, even if he didn't, you still question. Then I would ask, why didn't you perform the Cellbrite extraction on Lance's phone the night of the interview? Like the night that he came down, all they do is take pictures of it, which to me is so rookie. Like, is this the FBI and SBI? Are you guys like creme de la creme, cream of the crop? You're taking pictures. And they did ask him, did you match up the Tyler's contact with Tyler's number? He said, yes. It's just so sketchy. It's so sketchy. There's no verification. There's no authentication. There's no chain of custody. They're just, and I don't even know why we didn't ask these questions. All of these are the ones that I've come up with just listening to his testimony. I would have asked, do you see the issues with just taking pictures of Lance's screen? Y'all give me 1 second. My dog is flipping out. 1 second, y'all. Okay, back. That's what happens when you have children or animals. If she was a cat, she would be jumping across the screen right now. She goes from being an angel in the morning to all of a sudden when squirrels get active, she gets active too. Okay, so back with it. Did the prosecution ever issue Lance a preservation of electronically stored information? So we do this a lot as attorneys. Like, the first thing that happens that when you know you have a lawsuit or you're going to is you issue a notice of preservation of electronically stored information. And that can go out to people who are not parties in the lawsuit. Okay. It just says, don't be destroying evidence, essentially. And it's pretty standard. It's the first thing you send, always. Let me also do this. We had a lot of distractions this morning. I apologize, you guys, but this is life. This is life. It's okay. Okay. So I would have also asked, what is your protocol for sending preservation of ESI notices? It just blows my mind because this is not like a little tiny rinky-dink like law enforcement that fumbles a lot. This is SBI and FBI. Okay. Have any of the forensics analysis been performed on Tyler's phone? Because nobody ever asked that. Nobody ever asked, did you guys see Tyler's phone? Did you guys confirm that the metadata is the same, or accurate? I can't even believe I'm saying this. Like, look, I don't do criminal law. I do civil, and I have seen my own depositions are much more thorough and uncomfortable sometimes than any of this was. This was wild. Okay. Have you interviewed any of the individuals belonging to the Discord group chat? Like, you talked to any of the friends that were on the Discord chat? And he said that, Tyler's parents were interviewed at the sheriff's department. Like, what did they say? We never heard what they said. Nobody ever talked about that. They could have testified to the report. What did Tyler say during his interview? Y'all never told us. They never said that they only said he came in to turn himself in. They did not say what the statement was. I just can't believe it. And it is on the burden at the preliminary hearing is on the prosecution to say, hey, judge, we have enough evidence, we have enough evidence. We have this stuff. This is enough to say, hey, we need to send this to the jury. We need to have a trial. And because it's on the burden of the prosecution, the defense doesn't really have a whole lot of tools to work with. All they can really do is call witnesses that were directly involved, or they can cross-examine whoever the prosecution is going to bring up. And sometimes they just decide beforehand who's going to go first. So some of these witnesses we'll see, they're all technically prosecution witnesses, but we went first in the line of questioning, so they're called defense witnesses. Anyways, it's getting in the weeds. Doesn't matter. But it's not like, okay, I do medical malpractice and personal injury, right? So if I have a client who has a broken arm, all right, I can have the doctor who treated him there, and that's good because you need to have that. But I'm going to hire my own expert witness physician, and then the other side is going to hire their own expert witness, right? But here it's a little different because the prosecution has the witnesses that directly, did these analysis and the investigation and stuff. So it's a little different in that sense. So it's not like the defense can just call a witness that has nothing to do with, has had no involvement in this case thus far, if that makes sense. Anyways, let's get into the weeds, but okay. So how have you authenticated that the letter was written by Tyler? I don't know why we didn't ask this. How do you know that that was written by Tyler? You guys do? I'm not expecting, a handwriting analysis yet because y'all haven't talked about it. You haven't introduced that, but how do you know? It would be enough to say, have y'all authenticated this? And if they hadn't had a handwriting expert, I'd say, okay, so you can't, you can't categorically say that this was Tyler's handwriting, can you? It's that easy. And then as the booking officer, did you ensure biographical information regarding Tyler was noted? So his shoe size, I'm sure that they got his weight and all that kind of stuff, but it's also relevant because they seized some of his shoes from his room, the shoes he was wearing, whoever was wearing in the videos are relevant, his shoe size. You've got the footprints, 2 of them that I guess were not photographed. And then I would have said, what have you done to corroborate that Tyler is the suspect you were looking for? Like, how have you corroborated it? I would have just point blank asked him, how do you know it was him? And how have you corroborated Lance's story to you? And are you trained to consider whether a confession is false or coerced? Because that is a thing too. And there's law on that. There are, it's early in my brain. It's not firing yet, but we have big cases on that stuff. Precedent. So just because somebody is coerced, okay, let me dial this back. Just because somebody confesses doesn't mean it doesn't mean that if they didn't do it, that they're still going to be on the hook for it. Does that make sense? Like if it were coerced or as a false confession, that is a thing. And I really was liking Agent Davis until there were just a couple tells, it's something, it's subtle. He talked about Lance coming down and that he gave over his cell phone to take pictures of it. And he said, and he did that voluntarily. Okay. Like, I'm trying not to read too much into what people say, because sometimes, you're on the stand, you're saying things, but like, so your team Lance is kind of what it sounds like. And then, ever since I was like putting this stuff together, I had heard that, on Candace yesterday, she said that someone from the sheriff's department gave Lance a ride back to his parents' house. And I want to know why and what was said. Did they advise him that likely this would be going to court and there'd be a preliminary hearing? Maybe you're expected to be a witness, a key witness. Maybe don't leave state lines. I would really like to know why we didn't ask that. So let me escape to where I can see you guys and let me know what you think. I know, Crunk, I was just in here. I couldn't sleep. These things were in my mind. I just have to get them out or else I can't work. Okay. Good. Sound is good. Okay, cool. In the post X. Okay. Don't remember the margin. Good morning. So Keith, I have 2 dogs. I have a standard poodle. That was obviously her. Her name is Bouvier. She's named after Jackie Kennedy. And then I have a male golden doodle, and his name is Moose, and he's 110 pounds, and he's my baby. He would never bark like that. Okay. Y'all have any thoughts on these questions? Oh yeah. Keith, I'll bring them in at the end if I can lift them up. She's 60 pounds and he's 110. Exome Pasco in here says, yeah, permitted. Yeah, this is where the patients moved from Timpanogos Hospital because, and knowledge, especially due to Charlie's medical records being on there for the, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to Agent Valmina. Okay. So I have so many questions here. I have so many questions that nobody asked. And I think a lot of people were also wondering about that. I think my battery's done. It is a morning, you guys. Is Mercury in retrograde? I think it is, actually. Okay. So as I'm listening to all her testimony, it becomes clear that there are more pieces of evidence that were swabbed for DNA sampling that went in that we never actually heard about. or were canceled for testing, like the backpack. So I would have said straight up, can you just please tell me every single sample that was sent for DNA testing? And remember, her main job is to determine, to be there to assess the evidence. Her job, she said it, was to decide what was going to be probative and what's not. And that is huge. That is a legal term. That is, it's a legal standard. So, I mean, her job is massive. Okay. I am shocked that they don't have a protocol of wearing body cam. If an officer on campus is wearing body cam, why are they not? I would have been asking that too. Okay. So we talk about the backpack, right? And she says that they called off the DNA testing for that because one of Charlie's security team members claimed it. I would really like to know which member of security. Also, how many backpacks were found? Because I'm hearing about this one that's over there by the library bus stop, and apparently it had like gloves and a hat, or a jacket in it. And then somebody else testifies to a backpack found, and is it a different one? Is it the same one? And they talk about a backpack that was found with a gun. So is it one backpack with all these things, or did we find multiple backpacks? And I would really like to know, like, which one did Charlie's security team claim? Because if it was the one sitting by the bus stop, why? How? And then I would have said, why wasn't the DNA analysis from the backpack included in these results in the report? Because it had already been processed. They had already processed it. They just told the lab they don't need to run Lance's DNA as a reference on it. So, like, what were the results? Also, how many guns total were found that day? Because we've got the one in the holster, right, that Agent Bagley talked about. We've got the one in the backpack, then the one that they found that they're attributing to Tyler. And then there's one that's found on River Street. It was another gun that was found. But you know what? I went to look to see if I could find River Street, and all I can conclude is maybe it's a side back alley or something, because there is no River Street over there. There's a river side like neighborhood. I think it's in one of my one of my presentations. You can see it's a decent ways away, though. I don't even think that would be something that they would include. I don't know. If they really were searching for a manhunt, then maybe. But who just like leaves guns everywhere? This is not normal. This is not normal at all. I don't know why we didn't ask these effing questions. Excuse me. Okay. Were any photos taken of the footprints found on the roof in the grass? So she says that she found a footprint on the roof, and it was Bagley who said he found it on the grass, but we never heard about photos of that. What size shoe does Tyler wear? See, she's the one that seized two shoes from Tyler's house. One was a 10.5, and the other one she said she didn't recall what size it was. I would have said, did you compare the size of Tyler's foot to the size of the footprints? And what evidence did you guys seize from Tyler's parents' house? Because I've never heard if they seized anything from there. This one is big. What model and variety of the 30-06 cartridges were found in the rifle? Okay, so this was also in that former presentation I'm talking about. I went to the Remington website to see what they offered as far as 30-06 ammo, okay? And they offer about 17 different varieties. Some of them have been discontinued. But I guess the main point that I'm trying to make is that it's not just one type of cartridge, right? they have like a softer tip, a more, for lack of a better terms, more pointy green tip. It's very relevant. It's very relevant, but notice they didn't even tell us what it was. What about the ones, the box of the cartridges that they found in the apartment? Are those the same? I know they're Remington 30-06, but what model are they? And then I think I have, which y'all can't see here, and I already just told you guys. So they make 17 varieties of this caliber bullet, and it's sold in 20 count boxes. Yeah, 20 count boxes. And if you recall, she said that they recovered 2 boxes of Remington 30-06 bullets. But nobody even asked like how many were in there. I'll tell you that they only sell them in 20s, a count of 20 from what I could tell. But why didn't anybody ask, did you count how many were missing? It's really effing relevant. My mind is just blown right now. Is this a murder trial? I mean, is some kid's life on the line here? Did Charlie Kirk not die? I mean, we have 2 people who could be victims, you know? We already have one. We have Charlie. If this kid didn't do it, it's up to his defense to ask these damn questions. When I started putting these questions together, I really started to wonder if the defense is in on it, because these are very seasoned attorneys. These guys and Kathy, they're all out of California. I think Kathy has a license to practice in Utah. Another 2 were pro Hockton. But one of them represented Lyle Mendez. Remember, was that that was in the early 90s, I think. I don't know why I always want to say late 80s. It could have been. And then the other one represented the Night Stalker. I don't know if y'all remember him. He is the most terrifying serial killer, in my opinion. He was the one that was in LA, and he would just like pick a random house at night and go murder people. And that happened in Los Angeles. Like, how terrifying. I think his name was like Richard Ramirez or something. Anyways, so these attorneys like know better. They know how to ask even harder questions than this. Okay, so then moving on, I would have asked her, how did you authenticate the note that was written by Tyler, just as I proposed in the last one? Is it not SBI protocol to require your agents to wear body cam while collecting evidence? Whatever. Is it SBI protocol to clear a gun on site? Remember, she did that. She cocked it back to clear the gun. But is that protocol, before having to transport it to the lab, especially since you don't have body cam on? And I will say, I have a friend who is on, I won't say which department he's with, but he is law enforcement in Orem, and I had actually asked him if that was normal, and he said it's really kind of not. But in this circumstance, I guess you could clear it to make sure it's not dangerous, but you should always treat every firearm as if it's loaded. And it's not like she's not an FBI agent who has never dealt with a firearm before. I would assume it would be better practice to collect the evidence, take it into the lab, and then do it. They don't even have body cam footage on, It's just crazy to me. How did you utilize the shoes that you took from Tyler's room? Like, what did you do with them? Why didn't you issue a search warrant for Lance's parents' house? Did you seize any electronics at the apartment? Because that didn't make the list. Did you seize any iPads, like other cell phones, computers? Because the other theory that I've heard out there is that maybe Lance had access to Tyler's MacBook or something and was sending those messages back and forth, however that works. Yeah. So did you seize any other electronics? Because this is a murder investigation. And I would have asked for a full list of everything that they'd seized pursuant to any of the search warrants at any of the residents. When did you go onto the roof? Because we don't really know that. How did you decide which evidence was not probative? And I guess I have that in here twice. Why didn't you issue a warrant for the forensic data of Tyler's and Lance's cell phones? Because recall, we don't even know that someone said that they extracted information from Tyler's phone. I kind of hear this, but it's not sticking out to me. But normally you have to have a search warrant to do that. And they should have issued one immediately. They let Lance keep his cell phone until April, and that's when they extracted stuff. Why didn't you issue one for their computers? And you said that you found a variety of guns at the apartment. Which ones did you seize? Did you seize any of them? And because she said that they found, like, obviously Tyler is a hunter with his dad and his brothers, and it's an open carry state, except on campus it's a concealed carry. So it's not that odd. I know if you come from a state where you rarely see firearms, that seems weird, but it's not. Let me see. I'm looking at my other screen because this one's cut off. Okay. So yeah, what variety of guns did you seize? What about other cartridges or cases? Because to me, it seems very odd that someone who had a number of firearms wouldn't have other ammunition. Did you seize any notebooks or papers? Anything where they could have written notes? Were the occupants there whenever you conducted these search warrants? Were Tyler's parents at the house? Was Lance there? Did any of them have foreknowledge about the search warrants? Like, did you give them the opportunity? Could have given them the opportunity to hide evidence. I'm more like wondering, did they come banging down the door? Because I think they started the search warrant at the apartment at like 8 a.m. and then they went over to Tyler's parents' house at 4. And there was another thing I was thinking. Oh, do y'all remember the practice papers, like the shooting practice papers? There's 3 of them. She also said that one of them, like, there's still a bullet left in one of them. I would have asked, did you examine it? Like, what kind of ammo was it? What kind of, caliber bullets do you think they were practicing with based on this? Anyways, there are just so many questions that are left unanswered on her. So we have a lot here. So I'm going to see what you guys have to say. Ooh. There we go. Okay, I'm scrolling back up. So just so y'all know, I'm going through each of the witnesses and then I'm coming back to kind of check in and see what we thought here. Welcome in, everybody. Hey, if you're here for the first time and you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe. I'm going at random times right now to kind of work around everybody else, and I kind of just fly by the seat of my pants sometimes. So it's just more important that I'm actually getting these things out. And also, click the like button if you haven't. And if you have, just keep clicking it again. Okay, so I'm going to go down. Josiah from England. Yeah, you can. I was going to say you can speed up, but here, listening. I'm driving morning traffic. Awesome, Crunk. Awesome. Oh, you had a standard poodle cross with the Chesapeake Bay. Oh, how beautiful. I bet he shed, though, huh? Found by the bus stop. There's a person caught for one friend that looks just like Lance. Of course. I guess I just haven't seen that footage. Tracy's saying that the problem with the backpack found by the bus stop is there's a person caught for one frame that looks just like Lance. There is river-related streets over past the Quick Quack. Yeah. I think it's to the far east of campus. Man, look at me go. I don't know directions, but there's somebody like Billy who's been to UV as a student could tell us if it's unmarked. Yeah. Hey, if you guys know anybody who's a student at UVU, ask them if it's an unmarked street. To the retrograde. Yeah, we don't even have proof of the body, but I do know that his body was taken there, and I am going to believe her. If y'all follow Lauren the mortician over on TikTok, she's awesome. She just addressed what Barron had said last week about like the timing and stuff, and she said she personally made a phone call or has an insider over at the funeral home, the one that they took him to in Utah, and that it was a medical examiner's office. Yeah. The autopsy did happen, according to Lauren, who said that her contact went out on a limb to tell her it did. So I'm gonna trust that. But you're right. Like, we don't even have proof of a body because they won't let it in anyways. Yeah, it wouldn't show up on a normal map. River Street would not. I don't know why they have these attorneys, because these attorneys are supposed to be, top tier. Oh, I know. We're all victims of Erica. Okay, footage is on the Life is Driving channel. Okay, let me take a sip of my coffee. Anybody else have any thoughts on the questions we should have asked Balmina? By the way, I've mentioned this before. If you haven't seen the Netflix series World's Worst Roommate Ever, it's season 1 that she's in as like the FBI correspondent, and they like bust this woman for ordering bacteria on the dark web and basically making her roommate best friend like very, very sick. Here I am trying to drink off camera. I know Lisa Knows is nobody's favorite, but the thing that drives me the craziest about her is that I think she goes to the local 7-Eleven and just like Slurpees. Like, I don't know. She's always got some kind of like. Look, we are real people here this morning, okay? We're going to get through it. Okay. Let me have another little drink. Okay. So, moving on. And y'all can come back to this whenever you're more awake. Which part? The windows that won't stay shut? I'm going to figure it out this weekend. Or freaking Lisa knows. It's just, I don't know. I don't know why it annoys me. You guys ever have those things where like, I can't tell anybody else that this drives me crazy because I'm going to sound crazy? But I think people would get that with that one. Yeah, slurp. And she makes those faces like, good grief. Okay. All right. So this is Agent Hull. And you're going to see the questions aren't like they were with the other ones. And this was just to cut down on information and work for me because I had included this timeline elsewhere. So I copy and pasted it in here. And this is where I'm going to come up with questions. Okay, so y'all remember, I think it was day 1 or 2, and he is starting to testify about the footage of Tyler coming onto campus and all that stuff. Okay, so he says Tyler comes on about 8:30. They've got video of it's actually a Challenger. I keep calling it a Charger, and I don't know why, entering the parking lot. And he says it has distinct wheels. No, it really doesn't. Not for this make and model. It doesn't. I would really like to know, What makes the wheels distinct? He literally said the wheels are distinct. Okay, counsel, how are the wheels distinct? It's not. They're not. Here's another thing. Whenever I like charted all of the whereabouts of the suspect, that parking garage is it's a paid parking garage. You have to pay for it. So where is the footage of him paying to get in? Or how come we don't have that information? Because most of the other ones on campus, you have to have a parking pass, which makes sense. And my understanding is that he's not a student there, so he wouldn't have one. But I was like, parking garage is too close. There's no way that's free parking. So yeah, he had to pay to get on or to get off. I don't know. Maybe it's you drive on and there's an arm and you take a ticket and then you pay when you get out. Big deal. Why the F didn't we ask that? Okay, so then we know that the suspect, it seems to be Tyler. I don't know though. I don't know if it's him or not. Whoever it is, sits in his car for almost an hour and doesn't get out of his car until about 9:25-ish, and then walks down the parking garage to the quad and speaks to TPUSA. And whenever I think we all heard this, we're like, oh, what? And then the attorney didn't even ask who at TPUSA. Did you ask Agent Holt? Your SBI lead case agent, did you not ask like how do you know that? Who at TPUSA told you that it was him? How did they know it was him? Like, give us the details, Stop making us beg. Did our attorneys ask that? No, they didn't ask. They just went right on. I'm still stunned. Like, what did he say? What was it about? Because that's weird too, is it? Like, if this is really Tyler, and he's planning to do this, what would he go down there and say? What time does the event start? I don't know. Whatever. So he returns to the vehicle, and then the Challenger is pulling out of the parking garage. I bet he had to pay. We don't see that though. So at some point he like goes off, right? And he returns back on foot. So his vehicle is somewhere. I would have said, do you have footage from around campus where maybe he parked? They didn't ask that. He comes back to campus and eats at Chick-fil-A, which I have a bone to pick with them because I don't eat a lot of fast food. But ever since this hearing, like 4 weeks ago, I have eaten Chick-fil-A so many times. It was really free marketing for them. I know it's on Prego's mind. She keeps mentioning the spicy chicken sandwich. I don't even think they have a spicy chicken sandwich. But like, where is the footage of that? It's in the Sorensen's like student center, so it's right close to the quad. And whenever I say quad, I'm talking about the courtyard. There are a couple different names for it, amphitheater. Like, what does he do there? Does he talk to anybody? Does he sit by himself? He pays for it. Where's the receipt? We didn't ask any of this. It's not like, I mean, it's almost insulting that they allowed people to testify and then they didn't ask. Okay, so he then eats and somehow like loses a backpack. Yeah, he loses a backpack and then he walks off campus at 11. Like, where is the backpack? It just says that he's seen with no backpack. You mean you're telling me that y'all followed him to the Sorensen Center where he had Chick-fil-A and at some point he lost a backpack? You don't know. Like, did he walk into a bathroom and then walk out without it? Anyways, he walks off campus around 11, and then almost an hour later, he comes back with a backpack, different clothes, and a limp. So it could have been that the way he was testifying almost made it sound like when he was back on campus eating Chick-fil-A, he got rid of a backpack. But I think what this actually means is that when he came back onto campus, he didn't have a backpack with him. So I don't know. But see, this was confusing. Why did they not clarify these questions? Okay. So let me see. Because some of this said, not until I did it. Okay. Then at noon, he is seen walking alongside like Losi. And then I took out some of the like relevant portions about the roof and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, it's not until after dark that Agent Hull goes on the roof. He is a case agent, but he doesn't know when the tent was removed or the pavers or who ordered it. He doesn't know much about the canines and what they were looking for, if they found anything. He testifies, if y'all recall, there was a .223 cartridge found on another rooftop, and it was found on the computer science building, which is not, he says, is not a straight line site to where Charlie was. But actually, this is hearsay because this is according to another agent. And earlier, this had been, Attorney Nestor had been asking the first Bagley, excuse me. She had been asking Bagley about that. He said, I don't really know. I had heard about it. And then, of course, Hull says that it's protocol for the officers to load their gun when they're looking for a suspect, and then if they don't use it, then to unload the gun. But this was like an active suspect situation. Also, does this phantom officer, just litter? You're in the middle of an investigation and you use you just leave an unspent cartridge on a roof to confuse people. I don't buy it. This is just like there were too many guns that were found on campus. How often does anybody lose a gun? Okay. And then the cartridge, that seems like bullshit. I really want to see standard operating procedures for that. Okay. So let's see. He says that that day that Farnsworth, you guys know Farnsworth, provides the flash drives to one of the local agencies with downloadable files. So I think Candace had talked about that a little bit yesterday. I'm really wondering why he didn't just give the SD card. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Why did he just not give the SD card to the authorities? Because that's what you really should be doing. You should not be providing them with a flash drive that you might not put everything on. They should have asked about that. And then if y'all recall, okay, so that's 9:10, right? We move into 9/11, but this is just after midnight at 9/11. So right, it's like all of the 10th and then right up to the 11th. And do y'all remember they have that footage of the alleged car stopped at that intersection, and it stops there and then it proceeds forward through the light? Okay. Agent Hull testifies that there was an interaction with an officer there. Like, when did that happen? Like, at the light? Did he get pulled over? I never saw anybody talking. It's almost like he was saying that the officer was, as if the officer was like standing there and talking to him. And that's what caused the car to pause, which would make sense. But I didn't see that. It's also not what I heard. And if that's the case, okay, so the officer gave you a partial plate number. Since when is that really very helpful? I guess you could do process of elimination if you have the database to the DMV. But this officer, like, did he say who was driving the car? Because we know later they're trying to say that Miss Noble, who lives in the neighborhood around, like less than 10 minutes later, has ring footage, the doorbell, camera. And she has to tease it out of them. She was like, did she say that the driver was bald? Yes. And that there were 3 other passengers in the car? Yes. Okay, that's all well and good, but why didn't why didn't we get that information out of the officer who allegedly came, had an interaction with that vehicle? Okay, so stick with me for just a second because I'm going to read some of this stuff. So true, start crying. Okay. And without making y'all sit through all the text messages and such, I will say this, that it was after midnight when allegedly Tyler was doing all those weird texts back and forth with Lance. And he's talking about the sniffer on the dog. And he's like, well, crap, this officer's still here. I'm not going to be able to get my gun until 3. And then he says, well, crap, I can't find it. And this really sucks because I'm going to have to drive back. It's a 3.5-hour drive and then go into work. So that's what he said in the text messages. But Lance then turns around and provides testimony that, he saw him the next morning up and around the house whenever he woke up. And he saw him a couple times. So why didn't we ask, does anybody know if Tyler went to work? I'd really like to know if he had an alibi. I mean, they have an inconsistent statement without even realizing it there. Unless Tyler called in sick or something. And then at a later date, Agents Hull and Davis go and visit the medical examiner. And nobody even asked Agent Davis about this whenever he was on the stand. He had already been, I guess he had not been on the stand yet, but nobody asked him about this. He said, so Hull says that he didn't provide the medical examiner any information about what had happened, but it was on the front page of the autopsy, and Kathy Nestor pointed that out. Apparently he received CDs of photos, Charlie's prints in the report. Charlie's personal items were returned to the family, as we know, at least the cell phone and maybe clothes. I don't know, but we should have asked, why did you not seize his cell phone for forensics examination? And it's interesting because we later find out that there were actually 7 of the lead fragments that were recovered from Charlie, but they only sent 4 of them into the lab for testing. But, Hull says that he didn't know. He didn't know how many fragments were recovered. Really, it's so convenient. You're like the case agent. You can't recall. Okay. No, you just don't know, but he just doesn't know. So I think, and this wraps up Agent Hull. There's a lot of stuff we missed. So let me go back to the chat and see what you guys are saying. All right. Let's see if I can scroll it up. Yeah. Here we go. I think it definitely is Mercury retrograde because my tech's not working at all. Back of his hand from the top of his foot. I know. It's crazy. Let me see. It's not even there we go. There we go. Grab. Okay, here we go. I'm going back, y'all. Okay, down a slip. Good job, Keith. Glad you made it to the gym. Stop. No notification, Nash? That's not the first time for you, is it? Maybe go back in there and check and make sure. Nashville. Disgusting. The only real confirmed place is at the steakhouse. That has a receipt and 2 witnesses. I know. Mr. Feelgood, good morning. Welcome in. Also, he speaks throughout the passenger window, not the driver's side window. Tracy, I'm trying to... Okay. I could just be having a brain fart. It's early. The passenger, he speaks the passenger window, not the driver's side window. I probably missed something. I'm not cool enough to know. The pooch sniffer, I know, right? Oh, telling her, yeah, that I'm live. Yeah, go back and just double check and make sure. So I think you have to put in all of them, not just personalized. It's kind of reverse. Like if you put in personalized, I think it excludes some. Already turning off your notifications? Oh, yeah, because maybe they don't want people listening, pulling people. I know. Keza, I agree with you. It's just not acceptable to not know whenever you are the case agent. And sometimes I don't even think like this is incompetence, like because these are some of the most competent people. I think they choose. This is what they're choosing to play dumb. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because and Crunk, I agree. Yeah. Marty. Yeah. I agree. They don't have freedom of certain evidence. Yeah. Only 4 made it for testing. Okay. Good. Re-hit the bell. He wasn't shot. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with John Bray. He's dead. He wasn't shot. Yeah, it was something else. Oh, okay. Okay. Tracy is talking about the officer. The officer goes up to the car at night. He speaks through the passenger window, not the driver's side, and doesn't walk around to get the plate number. Interesting. Does it show him on the footage? Because I did not see him on the footage walking up. Oh, yeah, it was definitely a shape charge, but, based on his internal injuries, that had to be a blast. I mean, no pun intended, but like a real blast. These damn windows, y'all, I'm telling you. Yep, Freemasons, that's true. Yeah. All right. All right. Moving on. So although the information, understanding the DNA and the science behind the rest of it is kind of complicated, and that's what I'm going to address in my part 3 of going over the evidence. This series right here is just based on like the questions I think we should have asked. So interestingly, although the science is kind of complicated, but you got your girl. We're not going to go over that, but the questions are pretty simple. Oh my gosh, Crunk, thank you so much. Thanks for like sitting through the beginning stages of figuring out this podcasting thing. Oh man, it's wild. Okay, so let's go on. I think that some of the. Okay, all right. So if this confused you, and I'm sure it did because it confused me, we have evidence from so we have DNA from the gun, right? And that is different from the DNA. Well, I'm going to say this. It was sent to a different facility, okay, than the DNA from like the screwdriver. Apparently there's a handrail, the towel. That DNA was sent to an FBI lab. And the DNA from the gun was sent to the ATF DNA lab, right? So that makes sense. And then you have the actual gun itself and the bullet jacket and the fragments that were recovered from Charlie, right? That also went to the ATF, but to a different lab that they had. And that's the forensics lab. So I included this chart and the 3 ladies who were the witnesses to kind of help you figure that out. ATF is alcohol, tobacco, firearms lab, and then you have the FBI, right? So it makes sense. It makes sense that the ATF would have a DNA lab and would have a forensics lab with anything to do with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And that's why the DNA from the other evidence just went ahead and went to the FBI lab. And then in the witness column, okay, I have the ladies' names. And like I was kind of alluding to before, technically, they all did work on behalf of the state, right? Because the state was having them test this stuff. But it was different with who called these witnesses. And by call, I say like who called them up first. So the state was going to have Amanda Baker up. So they call her first, right? And then the defense ended up calling 2 of the other ones. Now, typically, in this, you're going to have, more likely than not, both parties are going to want to call the same witnesses, right? So they can stipulate, that just means agree to it, but then they can be like, okay, well, we'll call her up first, which means a direct examination. So when you are questioning your witness is the one who's doing the direct. So if I say she's my witness, I'm the one that's going first, and that's called direct examination. And then when the other side gets to take their turn, it's a cross-examination, right? And then you can redirect. So redirect means I get her back, and then they can recross if they want, and it just goes. So there's that. Anyways, this is your little chart to help you out. And we are going to go ahead and do this on my other side. And I apologize to any of these witnesses if you happen to see this PowerPoint. I tried to choose nice photos of everybody because I would just die if, I got, you take one frame out of anything and people can just look terrible. So I tried, but these were the ones that were online and I just had to grab them. So I apologize. Anyways, so this is Samantha Carner. She is the ATF firearm and tool mark examiner, right? Who performed the forensics analysis on the gun so that she actually received the actual gun, right? She also received the casing and the fragments that they recovered from Charlie. I didn't include the picture here, but there's one casing, and it's like the end of it. I always forget the terminology, but it's essentially where they stamp the butt of the bullet with, like the manufacturer, and the fragments. This can also be called the jacket, right? It's a thing that like explodes. The fragments are the internal iron. It's the internal iron, but whenever a bullet explodes, it just explodes in all directions. And you have a bunch of fragments. They're like little rocks or something. Like there is no shape, rhyme, or reason to them, right? So it was interesting. I'll just say this. While they did all this forensics on the bullet jacket, the casing that they had, which it blew my mind. Look, I struggled in physics big time, but she was so knowledgeable and broke it down so well. I was fascinated by her testimony. I really was. She definitely knows what she's doing. She's one of 2 of my favorite witnesses because I really felt like she was just there to do her job, and she blindly tested what she received in her lab. It seems like she did not know what the Fed's narrative was. And I like that. This is very scientific. What I found interesting is as much forensics as you can do on the jacket with like lining up. I don't know if y'all watched it, but they were like lining up striations of, so she fired, we'll just say it, like 6 bullets, right? It's 3 rounds of 2. And I guess they're only required to do 1 round of 2, but she did 6. And that's to make sure that each time a bullet is fired out of that gun, it basically gives you like the same stamp, like it's the same mark, right? And that was really cool. But they're lining up the fragment that they recovered from Charlie with the 6 different, test shots. Yeah. What I found interesting is that as much as they can do with that, she was talking about how she actually said there's no way to determine if the fragments that were recovered from him were from that bullet. There's no way. She's like, there's no way to tell. And she was just so matter of fact. And she's right, because they're internal. And that's actually what she's describing here. She brought her little demo. I know she was so excited to probably do this. But yeah, you got lead on the inside. There's no stamp or anything on it, right? It just explodes into little pieces. But somebody else brought this up to me the other day. You should be able to recover a majority. I don't know if you can recover 100% of like fragments, right? But put them all together, you should be able to kind of, I don't want to say come up with the bullet, but account for the caliber. I think that's a better way of putting it. Okay, so that was just a little bit of background on her. So we call her up first, and the way this went down kind of confused me, because it seems like when we got her back on redirect, so we had her, we passed her off, and then we took her back. Our attorney, Bert, was going at the wrong direction with her. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So she testifies that the jacketing and the fragments recovered from Charlie were inconclusive, meaning inconclusive whether it was fired from this actual gun, right? That's not a bad thing. Inconclusive is good for us. She can't say yes and she can't say no. But, it seems to me that that was the best testing in the industry, aside from one that they're trying to incorporate now. But what happens when you incorporate a new method is that you don't know all the errors quite yet, So I felt fine with that. She can't say yes and she can't say no. But if he had asked maybe some of these other questions, maybe we could have figured that out. So she only received 4 of the 7 fragments, and she did not even know that 7 of them existed until she got, I guess, photos from the medical examiner just a few months before this preliminary hearing. And I think we should have asked her about that. Like, what led you to communicating with the medical examiner? And then thus finding out that there were 7 fragments that were recovered from Charlie. Did you ask why you only received 4? Because I would be interested to know. Someone else had told me that maybe somebody had decided that 3 of them weren't testable, but I'm trying to find that testimony, but I can't. Anyways, I would have asked, is it typical not receive all the fragments? And now that there were 7 fragments and not 4, I would have asked, does that change your opinion at all? And maybe it very well could be that it doesn't, but it could be that it does. Like I was saying, if if the caliber of the bullet is like really small, then if you have a bunch of fragments that are bigger than the caliber, like obviously you can rule that out. Does that make sense? If you have more mass that's left over than what a bullet could be. But we're talking about, a 30-06. So there's quite a bit of material there, but that's my point. And yeah, I'm going to bring this up next. I'll skip ahead to it. So she actually gives a list of firearms that taking what she tested and the range that she was given, or that she gave, right, for the possible caliber bullet, she came up with a list of firearms that this could have come from. I'm going to show you that in a second. It's not conclusive, but it can help sometimes in ruling some things out. In our case, I don't think so, but here you go. Let me show it to you. Let's see. Okay. Luckily, this time I spelt it right. Last time I spelt it Mauser. Mauser Model 98 bolt action rifle, manufactured in Germany. That's the firearm that we have, right? And this is a list of the possible firearms that the bullet that she measured as that came from Charlie could have been shot out of. And you can see that, I know that the very end cuts out, but I think it's listed by cartridge caliber, right? So she's got 30-06 Springfield. That's, it's in our field house here. And then you have RB on the firearm type, and that means bolt action. And then all that means is that when they cock it back, that's bolt action rather than it like being fed through, or like an automatic or a semi-automatic. But then you have 3 guns here that don't match what we have. You have 2 Winchesters and you have a U.S. military weapon. Well, we know it's not a U.S. military weapon, and we know it's not a Winchester, but they didn't ask about that. Like, they just had this slide up, and they should have said, is the gun that you received into evidence on this list? And the answer would have been no. And then we could have had some follow-up questions. It's just like they led us there, and then they just dropped it. Sorry, y'all. Okay. So going back to that. Okay. And you may recall that she testified that there was dust in the gun. And he was all about, like, how could dust get in a gun? And she was like, I don't know. Why didn't they just ask, is it typical to find dust in a gun which has recently been fired? Or what does the finding of dust in a barrel tell you from a forensics point of view? Because I'm sure she could have answered that. It's crazy. Okay, here's the most wild thing. The range that she gave for the diameter of the caliber of bullet that this could have been, that they pulled from Charlie, was a 0.296 to a 0.301 inches. Okay, so smaller to bigger, right? So the upper end of that range is 0.301. Why did we not ask her, what is the diameter of a 30-06? And I actually, like, it, so as someone, I've shot a lot, but I just have never thought about this stuff. So it's not named after the caliber of the actual size. So a 30-06 is not going to be, you scoot the decimal point over 2 places. That's honestly like what I thought, to be honest. But then I was like, oh, that still doesn't make sense. So a 30-06 measures a 0.308 inches. So if you'll notice that the upper end is 301, and a 308 is bigger than that. That's just, I mean, the math isn't. Why didn't we ask him or her what the diameter of a 30-06 was? She would have said something like this, or we could have represented to her that it is a 0.308 inches. And then we could have said, does that fit your range? No. I'm speechless. I'm totally speechless. I also would have maybe followed up with that and said, were you aware that 30-06 is the caliber that the FBI, well, the feds or whatever, believed was fired from the gun. So this is why I liked her testimony, because it really seems like she was actually doing her job the right way and just testing with what was in front of her. Now we know that she had the gun, right? And she knows, I'm sure she's well aware of firearms. So she probably could have guessed that a 30-06 was what was appropriate for the gun. But we didn't follow up with these questions. So I have, I know a guy who is on one of the SEAL teams. And so I called him to ask him this very specific question: can a 30-06 caliber bullet, can it shrink after it's fired from the gun? I just want to preface this by saying that if it could, I think as an expert, she would have made her range compensate for that. And he said, it's really like more of an actual forensics, ballistics kind of question, but we were trying to sit there and come up with all the different circumstances, maybe in which it could have, like, maybe if the gun had been fired a couple times, and so it was hot, and maybe if the gun was hot, and then you shoot the bullet, it's hot, and if the ambient temperatures around were like freezing cold, possibly, but we don't know. That would be a question to ask an expert. So I don't know why we didn't ask that, because it's the non-smoking gun of this whole case. Okay, so let me exit out of here, and we're almost actually wrapped up. We just have 2 quick ones. Okay. Let's see what y'all got going on over here. Let me flat it up. There we go. All right. I'm going back now for anybody who's just kind of joined us, I'm trying to, because there's so much information here, I'm doing like one witness at a time, and we're almost done actually. And then coming back to the group chat to see if anybody has any thoughts on that. Oh, hey, the real one. What's up, man? Okay, I'm starting there. Exactly. Mason's working on us. Yeah. Oh, okay. Nash is all about my tech. The law of thirds. I actually was thinking of the law of thirds this morning, but not in respect to this. Yeah. We're going to work it out this weekend, Nash. I'm going to get it right. Okay. I'm getting all the things right. But the perfectionist in me was like, no, you just gotta get out there and do it. Yeah, Mr. Feelgood, there are a lot of moving pieces. Yeah, so Edward, yeah, the defense probably already knows who it was over at TPUSA, but because this is a preliminary hearing, they could only, you think of it like this, like the prosecution has to open the door because it's their burden of proof at the preliminary, meaning they're the ones that have to like put on the show to the court and make their case, right? So it's kind of like the defense has to just kind of sit there, and they can only kind of combat what's brought up. We call that opening the door. But I'm sure that they have the report that Agent Hull took, because Agent Hull's the one who said that he had gone and talked to TPUSA. So there must be a report. Yeah, Keith, I agree with you. I agree. If it was, I'm not surprised that DNA was found at all. I mean, was anybody surprised it's his gun? It's using to man the footage. Yeah. And kind of speaking to what I was just saying about the prosecution has to open the door. That's why I was hesitant for a long time until I reviewed all this stuff over and over again. to say that the defense fumbled, because there is strategy and there are limitations. However, they could have asked a lot of the stuff. Okay. Yes, Keza, I agree. Okay. Doesn't know what kind of bullet was found. I know. Peepsters. Hey, Nikki, welcome in. No, it didn't match. Okay. Yeah. Hey, Crunk, she only got 4 out of the 7 fragments. She only got 4. I get the bullet jacket is considered separate in a piece. Yeah, the dust inside the barrel. I mean, but that's the thing, right? Like, we aren't experts and attorneys aren't experts. But the fun thing about my job is that I become semi-expert in like a bunch of different stuff. If you want to know anything about mold or construction defect, I can tell you some really creepy things. So, but the dust in the barrel, like, I don't know, is that possible after shooting it? Yeah. You don't have to talk. I get it. Nikki, you can just lurk. I'm a robot. Smaller after. Okay, so Charles does say that the diameter of the bullet can be smaller after impact. So we should have asked that. You know, like that would really have helped clarify some questions, and that's what the whole effing point of all this is. Yeah, maybe she called because examiner. Yeah. Yeah, I really just need to, let's see. Let's see. We're almost down to the bottom, and then we'll go on and see if you're alive tonight. Yeah, I know. Oh, there is a lot of public outrage, but I don't know, Mr. Feelgood. If you're not over on X, then maybe you think that. I think probably if you're over there on Instagram or Facebook, it's a lot more quiet. It's like X, you can go let your hair down, and people have no idea, like, who your X personality. Like, your friends and family have no idea. It's like, oh, good Lord, I hope they never get over there. Okay. Oh, awesome, the real one. Dusty outside or the area of the gun shop. Yeah, exactly. So Crunk is right. If it was dusty outside in the area, dust could have gotten in the barrel, but they should have asked that to clarify it. Because otherwise, I'm thinking this is an old gun. He probably doesn't shoot it a lot. I don't know. I'd be kind of afraid to. I just wouldn't want to. I would just be afraid that, like, it would need repair or something, and it would be expensive, or like trying to find somebody who could do it. But who knows? Trying a decent amount to keep things. Yeah, definitely lurk. Okay, so yeah, other than X, yeah, I can't. I'm not even like on Instagram. I have one, but I don't ever do anything with it. I'm on TikTok, and people are outraged on there, but it's kind of funny how a lot of people are just burying their heads in the sand over on Instagram and stuff. Because whenever I post stuff, my friends are like, "You're crazy." I'm like, well, I'm not. You're crazy for not caring. Okay, Keza, thanks for stopping in. We're almost done. So you pretty much survived to the end. So glad to have you. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and finish the rest up so we can get y'all out of here. Okay. All right, so this is Caitlin. And she's my other favorite witness because she also just did her job the way she was supposed to. And I don't have a whole lot to say on this one either. So this is what I was talking about, how understanding the DNA analysis is rough, but I'm going to do my part 3 presentation on that. It's not that hard when you pare it down. But like the questions that they asked, they did really good at laying the foundation. I just had a couple of questions that I thought that they should have followed up with. So Caitlin, she's the ATF DNA section chief who performed the DNA analysis on the gun. So like, she didn't receive the gun herself. She got swabs, right? And of course, it's the ATF, not the FBI, because it's a firearm. Help y'all kind of explain that. So we call her as a witness. I really did like the foundation he laid with her. I thought he did a great job with that. But he should have asked her more about the major contributors to the trigger and the trigger guard. So let's not get caught up in the science too much, okay? But on the trigger and the trigger guard, they had 4 or more, at least 4 contributors. 2 of them were major. How do you know that? Well, they probably both had like 30% or more contribution to the total DNA, right? And so you can have more than one major contributor and pick that out. Tyler was one of them, but he didn't ask if Lance was the other. He just said another contributor, like would have been nice to know that. She also testified that she had requested samples from the agents who collected all the evidence so that she could rule them out. And that makes sense. If you are collecting evidence, you might accidentally contaminate the sample. That does happen. But as long as we have that as a control, you can like eliminate it out, right? As long as you're not a suspect. But she asked for it and they didn't give it to her. So I really would have liked to have heard a little bit more about that and why. And I think there should be consequences for that. A man's life is on the line. I think that the SBI and the FBI should be required to give those samples to make the DNA analysis as exact and precise as possible. That's only fair. They just didn't want to give it to her. So whatever. So that's all I have on Caitlin. And then the last one, which y'all will have to come back for part 3 of the evidence review itself. And we'll go through mitosis and meiosis just really quick and genetics. And yeah, it's more complicated, but the questions I have were not so much. Okay. The last one we have is, who is not my favorite. I'm still trying to figure out why. I don't know yet. I think it could be the way she was just kept looking at the judge. It was very awkward. Like, I don't know. If that's my biggest problem with her, I guess it's fine. So Amanda Baker, she works for the FBI. She's a DNA analysis. So she states that she received the case on 9/11. So, that's crazy because, thinking back on the timeline, they were collecting evidence and probably DNA samples on the 10th, right? So I guess by the 11th, they could have overnighted it, but I would have liked to have known that. And she did say that she was running an analysis as evidence was coming in. Let's see. She testifies. I have some of her testimony in here. She says on the 13th, she tells Agent Hull and the FBI that Tyler was a major contributor, and they decided that no additional comparisons were needed, right? I think she was testing the FBI was testing the non-gun DNA. So we're talking about the screwdriver, the towel. I think that there were other things. It's just like they tested the backpack and then they said, stop testing on it. We don't need it in the report. I don't know. So 2 days later, she gives the report. I guess really, when I was listening to this, I thought the questions I would have had, she brought up smudging. So there were areas of the DNA that they collected where there could have been smudging. And I think we all want to know, like, what is that? Is that like a smudge, like a swipe? That doesn't really make much sense. I don't know. Could it be that? Yeah. Like, how does smudging, he did ask, how does smudging affect your analysis? But I think a really good, like, foundational question would have been, what is smudging and how does that happen? And I think you should have asked more about how, like, on one sample, you can have degraded DNA, and then obviously there's some that is not, and that's normal, right? But if you have DNA in a sample that is degraded, and it's Tyler's, by the way, and then you have other contributing DNA that is not degraded, I think that is an independent, like, sphere to, like, isolated little sphere to look at. Like, if Tyler's is the most degraded, but it's also the biggest contributor, he should have said, well, does that mean that the other samples are more fresh? Because and you can't always just say that, but if you reverse engineer it, if only his is degraded and everybody else's isn't, I would have to assume that it was environmental factors, because you didn't have a cleaning agent. A cleaning agent would have degraded all of them, right? And DNA does degrade over time, but it's pretty resilient. It really is. It's resilient as long as it's not put under extreme conditions like heat, water, all that stuff. So, but to me, it really sounds like this was something that he had touched a long time ago, and therefore the DNA is more degraded. So I guess let me put it this way. If there was a cleaning agent that was responsible for the degradation of that DNA, then all of the DNA in it would have been degraded. Does that make sense? I would have really liked for him to have explained it a little bit more, or to have teased that out, because that is relevant. And there were a couple times I was not really thrilled about her testimony, but I'll cover that later. This was just the presentation on the questions that we should have asked that I thought that we missed. And I think that that's all we had, y'all. Yeah. So, yeah. Let's see. What do y'all have? An exact time on when the gun was actually located? That's a really good question, too. Thalmina said she was called after 6. So I guess they found it before 6. There's a video going around too of somebody who was on the scene. He has a British accent, and he saw them. He actually videoed them collecting the evidence. And interestingly enough, I was going to look up like the sunrise, sunset data and dusk data for that day. I just hadn't yet. But Falmina talked about how it was like 6. And so I really wonder if that matches up with the daylight in this video. Crunk. Thanks, man. Yeah, my brain does operate quite differently. But it's my forte in putting like discovery and stuff together. I can really get down with it. Let's see. Dehydrated nurse. I feel like that right now. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad. Yay. Thank you for liking and subscribing. If you guys have not subscribed yet, then do it, please. And I'm a newer creator. We've been going for we're close on 2 weeks. This might be my 2-week mark, but I'm putting out stuff a lot. And that's why we're just kind of like duct taping this little performance together, because you just got to get it out there sometimes. And if you're in here, go ahead and like it. Yeah. Oh, y'all, I was up whenever Andrew Wilson's wife. That's funny. Yeah. Okay, y'all. Any last comments? If anybody needs to just go, the information is out there. So you're dismissed from class. But if anybody has, yeah, thank you, the real one. Oh, you're so welcome, Mr. Feelgood. I really hope that you guys can come back and like learn more. My aim here is to not like just regurgitate information. I really have a lot that I find and that, I can provide insight on. So what I aim to do is bring either a new perspective on what's out there, or give you guys new stuff that I found. Class is dismissed. Oh, I did sleep. Not very long. Oh, good, Keith. I'm glad. Okay, y'all. Crunk is right. Class is dismissed. Y'all have a really great weekend. I'm sure I will see y'all around. I think that Anna and I are going with Allie today at some point. So if you're awake, stop by. And I love you guys. I'm so glad we got so many people in here, and I hope that it was worth your time. Love you. Like and subscribe, and have a great weekend. Class is dismissed.